Okay, this session we have a good bit of time allocated for any questions that you have around anything in the course, but specifically also anything that will help you do your final assignment. Or if you haven't quite got there in the desktop assignment, any questions you might have around that. Now, having marked a lot of those desktop assignments now, I've noticed a few things that people, or a few themes of things people are a little bit struggling with, and it's makes a lot of sense. Often people struggle with some of this, and so I'm going to run through a few things just to help out. So the first one I want to talk about is people struggling with this concept of what is a primary treatment and what is a supporting treatment. And I completely understand people having a bit of trouble with this because it's a very new concept and it's sort of been injected in at an Austroads level to try to assist people to strive for step changes in the infrastructure rather than tweaking around the edges with a sign or a line or the like, if there's a fundamental issue there. So I'm just going to use this bit of a slide here as a little whiteboard, and we've kind of got an intersection set up, so I'll use that. Let's just make this an intersection. There we go. And I think I've used this as a bit of an example in the course already, but I think it's a good one, but I might do some others. So if we have some car parks here, we've got an intersection and a car comes up to here. And if you as a road safety auditor, your concern was that, a vehicle positioned there won't be able to see oncoming vehicles because the sight lines are blocked. That's the issue, and you write it up using the formula or recipe, and I'm going to take you through that again because most people are really quite good at following that, but some people ignored that and just wrote a few lines about an issue and unfortunately lost a lot of marks because of not following the exact formula that we've set out for you. But okay, so you write up your finding. That's a reasonable finding. Now, if you recommend removing those car parks, okay, that's the recommendation. Make that no car parking there. Let's delete. There they go. So we've removed the car park. Now we've got great sight lines, great sight distance from the side road. The removal of those car parkings, though, is a supporting treatment. The reason it's a supporting treatment is that while you've eliminated that particular issue, what we're actually interested in is the crash. Have you eliminated the crash that could happen? And have you eliminated, or if you haven't eliminated the crash that could happen, have you brought it all within safe system tolerable speeds and energy and angles and all of that? Okay. So if we go back to this, your finding would have been sightlines blocked by parked vehicles, blah, 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 which could result, in a crash where a vehicle coming out here is struck by a vehicle going through there. Okay, so that's the crash. Now we've removed the sightline impediment. Can that crash still occur? Yes. Right. So okay, they can see, but they might make a mistake or misjudge or overshoot, or many reasons they come out. They're going to be struck. Are they going to be struck at the same speed? Yes. Is that speed above tolerable? We haven't specified a speed in this one, but we'll say it is. So the crash can still happen. We've lessened the chance of it, but it can still happen with the severity that we're talking about. Okay, so that's a supporting treatment. Now, you may decide in your road safety audit, you only want to put for this finding supporting treatments. That's okay. You don't need to have a primary treatment. Or you might have multiple primary treatments or the like. So don't think of it like primary as number one, but just think about it as a category there. Okay, so let's take this away. But let's, for this scenario, try and work out, well, what would a primary treatment actually be? Well, a primary treatment in this scenario would either be something to completely eliminate this conflict ability. Okay, so it could be to close off this road, for example, or close off these roads. Primary treatment, because now that crash can't exist. Okay, very odd that, very rare that you're able to actually, close off roads like that. But in theory, that would be a primary treatment. What else would be a primary treatment? Well, a primary treatment would be saying, well, the crash we're interested in here is this right angle crash. What speed are we sort of targeting for those? Well, 50 kilometers per hour or below, based on our module 1 information that we looked at for. This is for cars. It's a car-to-car crash we're talking about at the moment. You might have other issues where motorcyclists or cyclists or pedestrians, but I'm just trying to simplify with this one. So we go, okay, well, can we put in measures to reduce the speed to below that? So maybe, you put in a raised intersection and you assume it's going to sort of go down to get speeds down to 50 kilometers an hour. You wouldn't give them the exact dimensions of this and ramp angles and those sort of things. But you say, raise the intersection so that operating speeds are 50 kilometers per hour or below. That's a primary treatment, because while the crash can still happen, yes, we know that the speeds will be down within tolerable levels. So that's one example of a primary treatment at this location, this sort of hypothetical location. Another example could be doing a similar thing, but with a roundabout. Pop a little, deleting everything now. Okay. So we'll pop a little roundabout in here. And again, I wouldn't get too worried about whether or not we're, the specifics of the design of it, because it's, not the role of the auditor to do all the design work, but just say, consider implementing a roundabout to slow speeds and improve crash angles, because we know that then the vehicle coming in here will be slower, the crash angle will be better. That's another primary treatment. So there's a couple of examples just for that sort of crash type. Now, it still can be confusing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen there. I'm going to jump to another screen, because I'm absolutely aware that people have trouble with this. So I'm going to give you some extra assistance. Okay, so in our learning management system, if we go down here to reference documents and resources within the resources folder, and we click onto there, and we've got the Austroads Guide Part 6. But what I've done is I've put in there this other document, which is about safe system assessments, and that's a different beast. Don't worry about that part of it. But if we look at this document, within here, there are tables of treatments. You can find them. Here they are. That say a crash type, run-off road crash, okay? And then list primary treatments, flexible roadside and median barriers. They also list supporting treatments. And there's two sort of categories of supporting. Don't worry about that. Just go with supporting being the yellow and the orangey pink there. And then you can see there's another table now for head-on crashes. There's a table for intersection crashes, other crashes, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists. So you can see all of the things that could possibly, well, they're not, I shouldn't say all of the things, they've categorized quite a few things to help you, to provide you some assistance. So hopefully that will help you out a little bit in working out what is primary, what is supporting. Well, on into the back end. Okay. Actually, while I'm here, I'm going to show you one other thing. So this is from module 1, okay? When you are writing a road safety audit finding, please just follow this, at least for now, as you're starting out road safety auditing. Okay, maybe down the track you can start to be a bit more creative and play around with it. But the people who got near perfect marks on their assignments and things like that were the ones who just followed this instruction, okay? And is write out the issue, specify the crash, even if it's absolutely obvious to you. I want that crash specified. Like some people would talk about it, oh, you know, this pedestrian desire lines are this, and go, you know, from A to B, which will increase the risk for pedestrians. But they don't say that they just jump the crash part. They say, well, what's the crash? You know, are we talking about pedestrians tripping over? Are we talking about motorcyclists hitting a pedestrian? Are we talking about a bike hitting a pedestrian? Talking about a train? I mean, tell me what it is. And it's blindingly obvious in your mind because that's what you're thinking about, but just specify it. Say, this increases the risk of a passenger vehicle, a car, or maybe a truck hitting a pedestrian at this point. And the risk factors, that's where you talk about the environment. You know, what's the operating? It's high operating speed, or, you know, this will be worse because of the volume of traffic, the land use, the fact that there's a school in the area and there'll be lots of kids using this, whatever it is to do that. And then standards or guidelines if applicable. Now, a few people just sort of randomly decided to make a generic statement saying this complies with Austroads, but the auditors are still concerned. And I think that's because they were looking at an example. Now, you actually want to know that. Like, I'd prefer you not to just have a guess that it, you know, complies with Austroads or does not comply with Austroads. I prefer you just not have that statement if you're going to make a guess at it. It's more there for if you know something. Now, some of you talked about things like stand-up angles of the slip lanes, and it's a really great finding, and you work through that, and you say the crash could be vehicles entering the intersection being struck by other vehicles coming through. The risk factors, you know, could be this can be worse at night, the operating speed of Canterbury Road and the volume of vehicles, blah, blah, blah. And then you might say, and Austroads dictates a 70-degree stand-up angle for slip lanes, you know, which this does not meet, something like that. So it's very clear, you've pointed directly at it. But don't put it in if you don't need to. Okay. So those were a couple of my particular things that I wanted to point out as you're now developing up your actual audit and hopefully starting to get out on site and starting to document 3 findings. So does anybody have any questions or want me to cover anything that they're still a little bit confused by at this stage? I'll give you a second to write anything into the chat if you'd like, and I'm happy to talk to whatever. I do have a little bit of content to cover today. It's not a huge amount of content. As I said, my intention is to give you back time to progress all of those quizzes, assignments, and get yourself to that point where you're nearly ready to complete this course. Okay, well, I'll take it that from that, People are generally happy. However, as we tick along the course today, or sorry, the module today, if you do think of anything that you would like me to cover, please jot it in. Happy to talk really about anything sort of road safety engineering related, auditing, the process and anything like that. So pop them in. There's a question in there that says, do you have to complete all the quizzes? Yes, you do. You have to complete all the quizzes and you have to get 80% or more on all of them. You have to complete all of the quizzes, you have to complete all of the assignments and get 80% or more on all of them. Otherwise, your certificate will not release. And you get 3 attempts at all of those. I think one of them only might have one question, which is just like how many Wallies were there in the session. But most of them have some questions. Okay, a good question in there. Any suggestions for people who aren't familiar with reading drawings, designs, plans, and the like? And yeah, so first thing I'll say is that's probably something we need to have to think about in the course. The example I use, we use there, is a sort of what you expect to see. It's got a lot of different colors on it, lines on it, and people are wondering sometimes what they are if they're not familiar with that. And some of us, a lot of you and I sort of look at that and it's all very obvious and clear to us because we've been sort of grown up with that sort of stuff. So I think to assist in terms of the course, we're going to put a legend on that to explain some of it, or maybe try and find a simpler, less cluttered design. But in terms of any suggestions for that, when you get into road safety auditing, we're going to start, you're in a team and you're going to have a senior auditor with you, and they will, be somebody who can explain what different bits are. So that sort of continued learning. The more of those that you look at and the more time you spend with those sort of things, the more familiar you'll be with it and the what different things represent. So yeah, it's important though, I suppose, in the sense that a lot of road safety audits are done on very technical documents, and so being able to understand them is important. So making sure you work with people who can explain any of that to you if it's not something you know. So another question here, if the design proposal is to signalise an intersection, do we have to assume the right turns, etc., are properly being taken care of? Oh, okay, good question. So if you are given, a design and you're not given, for example, the phasing, which is like that Canterbury Road one, in a real audit, you'd ask for that and they'd likely give you that information or like. But my tip for you, if you don't get information and you have to make an assumption, assume the worst. Okay? Now, the reason you want to assume the worst is that if they have decided to put fully controlled right turns or split phases to alleviate your issue or whatever it is, they will simply respond to that in the comments. But the worst scenario is if you assume that they have and they haven't, okay, and that then slides through, we have a big issue there, okay? So assume the worst case scenario and off we go. Another question. A lot of time designers are responding with agreed, but not in scope. How do we deal with such responses as auditors? Well, that's their issue. Remember, an auditor is simply providing an advice document, and we often don't even get to see the responses. So that's up to them. Now, it's disappointing when you see that and they say it's out of scope. What I'd prefer them to say, this is out of the scope of this project. However, it's been passed to the traffic engineering team or the whichever team for inclusion in their investigations or program of works or whatever it is. But really, from the auditor's perspective, if they say, yeah, thanks for your finding, we agree, we're not going to do anything about it because it's not in our project, that's their choice. The next question: how essential is AADT for an audit? It's not essential. It can be helpful, and it can be helpful as you note down those risk factors. So when you identify issues, you will be able to say, well, you know, okay, it's high volume or the like, or low volume, so it's less of an issue. So it's just helping you calibrate your risk ratings most often. May help occasionally in sort of predicting issues associated with queuing or ability to make turns or the like. But if you're not given AADT, you can perfectly adequately do a road safety audit. These are good questions. So keep them coming in as I go, and I'm happy to talk through any of that. Let's go back to our slides here. And I'm going to run through a little bit of content for today's session, which is really around the administration and policy of road safety auditing around Australia. Now, I can talk to other countries, especially New Zealand, if people want, but considering everybody in this course is from Australia, I'll just be really talking to Victoria, South Australia, Northern Territory, Queensland. I'll add New South Wales in now, and yeah, I won't really talk to Western Australia because it's kind of like another country in terms of what they do in a variety of things, including road safety auditing. But if somebody's really interested in that, I'll happily go down that track with everything I know. Okay. I'm also actually going to talk about some legal liability stuff associated with road safety auditing and procuring road safety audits. We'll get into that. So we're going to look at the different requirements from different jurisdictions, how to get that qualification as a road safety auditor, or registration or accreditation or ticket or whatever you want to call it, and the legal risks. So let's start with some legal liability things associated with road safety auditing and procuring road safety audit. I do put a disclaimer on this one because I'm not a legal professional and I'm not giving you legal advice here. I'm simply highlighting some things we know of in the industry. I've certainly been involved in my fair share of legal issues associated with road safety auditing from my many years within the Victorian government, managing road safety auditing amongst other things, and I'll use that experience and some other stuff that I've been involved in. But certainly, if you've got any legal concerns, you need a legal professional to help you. But what do we know are going to be some of the possible legal issues associated with being a road safety auditor? So the first one I've got there is client focus. This is the sort of term we use for when a road safety auditor omits things or lessens things because it will help their client move things along. So I don't know, let's say you've got a client who's a big, I don't know, they have big hardware warehouses that they're deploying all across Australia, and these need to access onto the road network, obviously, and you're asked to undertake the road safety audit of the first one on behalf of this developer, a warehouse company, and you do your audit of their access onto the arterial road, and they have a look at it and say, we don't, this is that's going to cost us way too much money to do the things you're saying. Make that go away, please. And if you sort of entertain this idea of watering down your audit or removing stuff associated with that, it could have potential legal ramifications. Because so what happens in that case is that the audit is then given to the road authority with the plans, for the upgrade to the intersection or access to this development, and that's all considered. So we get quite worried as an industry about this idea of client-focused auditing. I did review a big number of audits was probably about 10 or 12 years ago in Victoria to see if we could identify any evidence of this sort of client-focused auditing. I couldn't find anything really glaring. I suppose I'd have to try to find, dig into people's emails to see if they had actually entertained this. But from the audit reports and the like, I found some pretty average auditing, and I suppose gave benefit there that it was just a lack of maybe knowledge of that specific topic rather than any sort of misappropriate behavior or anything like that. But it's something to be very aware of. Inadequate brief is the next one. Now, inadequate brief, obviously you're not writing the brief as an auditor, but if you are given not enough information to really do an audit and you don't ask for any of that missing information, that could, come back on you. I mean, it doesn't happen often, but so if you, for example, are not given the swept paths and you don't ask for the swept paths, it could be an issue. Now, if you ask for the swept paths and they say we don't have them, okay, that's all right. I mean, you can still do your audit. You would note within your audit, no swept paths were provided. The auditor has assumed that by eye this doesn't work, or you just say, very clearly as the first recommendation, swept path analysis needs to be done to ensure that this all works. So you've said, how am I meant to assess that? You could get your own swept paths done, but some people aren't in a position to be able to do that, which is fair enough, because as an auditor, that's not really part of your role. Misleading your qualifications or experience, that goes across all industries really, doesn't it? But saying you are a senior road safety auditor when you're not, or the like, always could leave you open to some legal prosecution. So they're not following the correct process. And I put their day and nighttime inspection and visiting the site. Now, there are circumstances, they're rare, where you may not visit the site at night, and you may not actually visit the site under the 2022 version of the Austroads Guide. Now, not go to the site at night should be rare. However, as an auditor, it's really whatever your client has directed you to do. If they say daytime and nighttime inspection, you have to do the daytime and nighttime inspection. If they, excuse me, if they say desktop only, the only one that this applies to should be feasibility stage road safety audits, the very early one. And it's written into the Austroads Guide. For that stage of auditing, sometimes you can just do a desktop assessment. Now, even those we debated at an Austroads level for quite a while, but it's trying to cover off, I suppose, that completely greenfield site where you're standing in a paddock and going, well, what am I getting here? My argument was, well, yeah, okay, I mean, the bulk of that is in a paddock, but it's got to tie into the existing road network somewhere. So let's have a look at those at night as well. Oh, sorry, at daytime and nighttime and on the site. But it was decided that that should be an option for people to consider. Not following your own quality management processes and systems, and that will depend on what organisation you're in. But you know, that's just different. It was different for different organisations. And then what the legal fraternity talk about is a reasonable assessment. What is a reasonable assessment? Well, that plays out in court. You know, have you picked up things that your peers would have picked up? You know, that sort of question. So there's some things to look at and think about as auditors. Now, I'll give you a little tip. Far and away, the most legal cases associated with road safety auditors and all of this is in the temporary traffic management space. I'm asked, 6 times a year to be expert witness on legal cases associated with temporary traffic management, whereas only a couple of times for other ones. And I don't do the temporary traffic management ones. I'm off to my colleague Twan. Because I just don't have quite the knowledge I need in that space. But I just do flag that if you are going to be an auditor of temporary traffic management, that's, it comes with extra legal risk. And I think it's associated with, the contractors and then injuries and work safe and, all of that mix. Okay, what about the people that are buying the audits or purchasing the audits, getting the auditors to do stuff? Well, we talked about inadequate brief. So if they're intentionally holding back information that the auditors need to do a proper job, well, that could be an issue. Requesting recommendations is a no-no. We don't, so saying, can you please put in this specific issue, or we don't want anything to do with trees in this audit because it's, environmentally sensitive area or anything like that. Like that you have compromised the independence of the audit by doing that. Now, that being said, the clients can certainly flag things, say, there's been concerns about this or this, and that's fine, but leave it to the auditors to decide whether they're going to put that in or not, how they're going to risk rate that. So then when you receive that report, you have to do something with it, okay? So each of the findings needs to be accepted or rejected or deferred, and they're all acceptable. So you don't need to do everything the auditor says, but it needs to be responded to. And then some sort of means of prioritization is kind of important within any road authority or anybody at this end, because the courts are absolutely fine and understand that there is not unlimited resources. Okay, what they're not fine with is just ad hoc, random, things that get action and things that don't. They want a clear process, and then to see that process was followed. And so a road safety audit can help with that, because as you're seeing, we risk rate everything. So you're going to know, if you receive a road safety audit, which are the highest risk and which are the next. The bit you don't get is the cost to rectify that, and you've got to have to think about that, but some sort of way of prioritizing these or moving them to other programs or alerting others to it or the like. And then the last one, again, the lovely legal word of reasonable. You're held to a reasonable process throughout all of this. So that's that's some of the legal stuff. That's probably all I want to cover in the legal stuff, and then I'll get on to registration and the like. So questions come in. What about adding generalized notes about non-safety related issues in a road safety audit? Okay, this is definitely a possibility, and there's two options for how you can do that. So one is within our matrix. So you're now all very familiar with the matrix, and you've got your issue and your risk and your all of that stuff in this. So you would have the issue, and then where you've got the risk, you just write to note. Okay, to note only. I write actually. So I'm saying I'll use to note only when I go, yeah, it's not a road safety thing, but I don't like it, or I don't think it's good, or the like, or I'm unable to make an informed risk assessment of this for some reason or another. I just don't have enough intel, like the swept path one. I would probably put to note only. I'd say, no swept path analysis was provided, blah, blah, blah. The auditors are unable to determine whether vehicles will be able to make this turn. Risk to note only. I don't know. I mean, it could be fine. It may not be. And then say, swept path analysis. But you could do that with, we've noticed, on your plans, you're proposing to chop down a 400-year-old tree. Just by the way, that you should probably check with your environmental officer on that. You could do that if you wanted. I mean, it's outside the scope of a road safety audit, but if you notice and you think will help the project, it could be a nice thing to do. That probably, for me, is a bit weird to go into the table. It's got to sort of somewhere be related to road safety. For that, I'd put that potentially either as an appendix and or as just a separate memo. Now, the appendix one, I often also collect a whole lot of things that I go, this is a road safety issue, but it's not big enough road safety issue to even warrant to make that risk rating. Even the lowest of the risk ratings we've got in there, I don't think is adequate. So I'm just trying to think of an example of this. I don't know, a trip hazard on a footpath or something like that. I go, what is the chance somebody would be killed or seriously injured because of that, where it is? I go, it's not even going to make my risk rating. Like, I don't like it. I'd like to see that improve. So maybe I'd have an appendix with just other notes and issues. And I know some of my design colleagues, Jamie, who presented, he's a stickler for design presentation. He's really determined that people should be presenting designs in a particular sort of way. Sometimes he'll often write just little extra notes here as tips for the designer. You could do that. So hopefully that explains that. How do we differentiate between a road authority full Austroads guide to road design compliance, road safety audit versus a subdivision IDM standard where Jeff and Austroads guide to road design is followed loosely, but it's not safe? Well, guard fence, yeah. So it doesn't matter for a road safety audit, and that's kind of the beauty of road safety audit, because we're not checking against standards and the like. Yes, the standards is that optional thing you can use later down the track in your finding to justify different bits and pieces. But you're talking about that from your first principle knowledge of, in this case, guard fence and what people are doing and how they do it. So you might, it might be a very low speed environment, and you see that they're using fishtail end terminals, and you go, this doesn't, yeah, but you go, oh, okay. I mean, it's so low speed, spearing won't happen. It's in this position, and you go, well, okay, that's all right. You might make it a little to note, say, by the way, that's but we don't think that there's an actual risk there. So yeah, don't be wedded to compliance with any sorts of standards or guidelines. That's not our role. Okay, keep the questions coming in. This is good. This is exactly what this session is for us to have these discussions. We will have a stretch break in 10 minutes or a bit over 10 minutes. And then after that, I'll do a little bit of just a few more live examples of things, and then I'll give you some time back. But a lot of people are very interested in, what sort of accreditation do I get out of this? Okay, so when you successfully complete this course and get your certificate, you get this certificate from Safe System Solutions that says you've successfully completed our road safety audit course. Okay, what does that mean? Are you then an accredited road safety auditor? Well, the answer is no, you're not. There is an extra step to happen in most jurisdictions. So in Victoria, you need to register onto a list, and then you will become an accredited road safety auditor. Same with Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales. Northern Territory doesn't have a register. Tasmania doesn't have a register. Tasmania basically uses Victoria. Northern Territory says we'll use anybody's, just be on any register will do for us. Western Australia has their own. New Zealand doesn't have a register and says we'll just check auditors, people who come and say they can do an audit on a case-by-case basis, and usually what they want is a certificate from a course and a CV to show that you've got some experience in this. So what I want to do is show you how to get onto these registers. Now, I'm going to take you through Victoria, Queensland, South Australia. In the past, New South Wales has sort of had their own little thing going on. Last week, they actually got in contact and they said that they want our course accepted. So our course is now accepted within New South Wales as well. So that's a added bonus for all of you when you successfully complete this, that you'll be able to register in New South Wales as well. So what the states do is they have these two things. They have road safety auditor and senior auditor, and I'll take you through this shortly. And they have these requirements. What I did is created this one pager, and I popped that into the learning management system, which goes through all the different jurisdictions and all of their different requirements, because it's quite a mess. But Austroads is working on a project to try to harmonize this, but it's the most parochial thing you'll ever see, like states fighting with each other about what do auditors need, and what do you need to do to step up from road safety auditor to senior auditor, and no, we have 3 levels of auditors, and it's all fun and games really. So let me take you through the specifics of Victoria. It's going to be easier this way. Here we go. So there are these 2 levels of accreditation. We have road safety auditor and we have senior road safety auditor. Nothing to do with age. I could swap these 2 around. It's about time doing audit, number of audits, really. But you will start off as a road safety auditor unless you actually have experience doing audits and those sorts of things. But to become a road safety auditor in Victoria on the list, you need to complete this course or an equivalent approved course, and you need some experience in road safety engineering, road design, traffic management, or road user behaviour. Now, this is fairly relaxed for entry level, okay? This is really about ensuring that people are sort of working generally in the industry. Now, having sort of seen where you all come from and what you do, you're all going to get a tick in that, okay? So that's all you need. To graduate up to a senior road safety auditor, remember you need a senior road safety auditor on these audits in one way or another, and they are the the lead of the audit as well, they need to graduate to senior, you need to have done this course or equivalent. You need 5 years experience in the road safety engineering, design, traffic management, or road user behavior. And you need to undertake 5 road safety audits with a senior auditor. So in Victoria, we use this website, vrsa.com.au. Okay. Now, I set this up quite a long time ago. I set it up off the Victorian government VicRoads website, which I got in a lot of trouble for, but I was not going to go through the hoops that they were requiring to get something integrated in there, and I didn't think it would be managed and the like. So this one still remains as a standalone entity and ticking along well, very well used. It looks like the old VicRoads website, but anyway. So the first thing you see when you go to vrsa.com.au is a disclaimer. And the disclaimer says, this website contains a big list of road safety auditors. We can't guarantee any are any good. We just guarantee they've met these specific requirements that we've checked. Okay, fair enough, agree and continue. And then you go in there and you've got a whole lot of options on there, but let's go with the first thing that you're likely to want to do, which is register for road safety auditor accreditation. So then you go to that. Now, you're going to register as a road safety auditor, which is the top one. A senior road safety auditor, if you happen to be doing this as a refresher course or something like that, you've actually done audits and those sorts of things. So you're going to register as a road safety auditor. And then you fill out this information, its name, organisation, department, position, all of this. You can hide anything you don't want the public to see by just checking that box. You fill out all that info, you upload your certificate, electronic copy of your certificate for a successful completion of the course, and then they'll process that. Now, once you're on the list, you're able to log back in as a user and give more information. And so there's log in there. It's fairly intuitive. Now, so vrsa.com.au. That's where you're going to want to go. So in there, the public and anybody can search for an auditor. And when you search for an auditor, you can search by name or organisation, or you can search by required expertise. Now, take that with a grain of salt because it is self-populated. And then you sort of get this big list of auditors and come out like this, and then you can click on an auditor. So I think I'm clicked on myself here. There I am. There we go. Let's click on that. And this is the information you'll see, for an auditor, senior auditor, contact details. I scroll down a bit. Relevant professional experience. So that's sort of what you're putting in at the start to show that you're in the industry or you do that. Now, that you can hide all of that. You don't need to show anybody that if you don't want to. Expertise. Now, I have been in this game a very long time and done many hundreds of audits, but I noticed I haven't ticked that. We put this other one in way back in the day to try to cover off anything new that came along, like whether it was an e-scooter audit or something like that, but we haven't utilized that. And then regions, so you want to perform work in, they're just Victorian regions. It doesn't really mean anything. It was just in case people only wanted to work in Eastern Victoria or something like that. And then in terms of past audits and what people see, they only see limited information about the audit. So they'll see this big list of what what you've logged. Where was it? What was your role? When did you do it? Who was the client, and what stage was the audit? So feasibility, concept, detailed design, post opening, and did it have any specific theme to it? So that's all they'll see. Behind the scenes, there's a little bit more information where you have a contact, and if they want to audit the auditors, they will get in contact with the clients. And you upload your course certificate as well. So I suggest getting onto the Victorian one. The Victorian one does now come with an e-learning test as well. You're going to be extremely well set up to do that test because it's pretty much the content that we've covered already. It talks about things like primary and supporting, and it talks about a few other sort of safe system thinking stuff, which we've covered. And at some point, you'll probably have to do that e-learning as well. But vrsa.com.au. Now, questions coming in is, can we register in more than one state? Absolutely. Yep. And Australia is trying to make it so you don't have to do that. So it's not so administrative and time consuming that you can just register in one central location and be covered off on all the states, but we're not there yet. So you would go to the South Australian, it's not DIPI anymore, is it? It's DIT. Their website, and theirs is a little, I suppose, well, a little different. It's simply you download a Word document, you fill it out, you send it in, and then, periodically, once every 6 months or so, they update a PDF of who's on the list. So that's DIT. And then Queensland, they've got similar, you fill out a Word document, but then they publish theirs with the list of auditors on their website. So that's in there. And I haven't popped in New South Wales because, as I say, that's very recent, but I can show you that live if you'd like. Oh, the DIT one, they do point out something which I think is important for us to know. Road safety auditors, and we've got heavy vehicle route assessors. They are different things. So, you're not out of this course a heavy vehicle route assessor. You will be a road safety auditor. Well, you've got that. So hopefully that makes sense. PRSA.com.au. Okay. So ticking along nicely here. It's right about time for our stretch break, but I will do that. Let's take 5 minutes, fill the coffees up, and then we will, as I say, I'll just finish off with a few examples, and then I'll show you how to finish off the course in the learning management system, and then I'll give you some time back to finish off those quizzes and assignments and get cracking. So 5 minutes, and then we'll get back into it. Okay, let's get back into it for the final 25 minutes or so, maybe less. Okay. So I've just got a few little case studies, I suppose, or examples or things I wanted to note. And then I'll show you through Learning Management System to finish off the course. But do pop in any final questions you've got as I go. Okay, this case study is sort of an example of some process failure, and I think it's a bit of learning for all of us. But let me take you through the scenario. So this is a road, it's an arterial road, and it's 80 kilometers for quite a while, probably for about the last 10 kilometers at least. 80 kilometers an hour, so you can see here, driving along 80. Don't worry about the car over there. That was just the car that my colleague and I arrived in and tried to park it out of the way. So, you know, you can see no overtaking lines there, 80 kilometers per hour. Let's go a little bit further forward. And you can see there, okay, you've got an overtaking opportunity now. Yep. And see there's something off in the distance, it looks like. Bits and pieces. Let's go a little bit further forward. Okay, getting a little more stuff. Okay, you can see the intersection works way down the end there. It's a little hard to see. And we've got speed sign covered there, but that's all right. It's an 80 zone we're in, and let's go a little bit further forward. Okay, all right, that's actually a 60 there, so we're changing speed zones. And oh, hang on, what's going on here? All right, let's go a little bit further forward. Traffic hazard ahead, okay. And let's jump a little bit further forward and see what's going on here. Okay, we've got an island. It looks like it's been hit quite a bit. It's only been out there for about a week. So we've got something going on pretty bad here. So let's have a look, maybe let's come back at night and have a look. Okay, that's what we see. Nothing. It's not looking good at all. Okay, so is this just no lighting? Is that the issue? No lighting, or is it more than that? Well, let's jump back a little bit. This is probably a good photo to look at and to scratch our heads and ponder. Now, actually, I'm going to go back a little bit further and see what do we got out there on the left. What's going on out here? Okay, it's a development. It's a subdivision, big subdivision coming, medium-sized subdivision coming, and they've been required by the road authority to do some turn facilities. Okay, so they've built their turn facilities, and it's obviously not functioning very well. But what is going on with this? Why is it not functioning well? I mean, we have turn facilities all over the network, and they don't perform this bad. Well, there's a few things that seem to be weird about this, and my colleague and I stood out there and scratched our head looking at this for a while, and finally sort of worked out. Okay, first of all, we don't offer overtaking opportunities on the approach to anything like this. Okay, so that's bad. Okay, you can imagine being behind a truck or something, and you finally got your overtaking opportunity because, or maybe back here, you'd been stuck behind the truck for a long time, and now you finally got your overtaking opportunity, and you overtake and you're on the wrong side, and yeah, so that's not good. The second one is, this is a bit odd, isn't it? You're driving along, and then you've got to make this kind of sharp lateral movement to get around this, and that's not how these usually work, is it? and just sort of driving it and looking at it. And there's something weird, something odd's going on. Let's have a look at some standard drawings of how these are meant to look. Okay, right. So we took that photo from up here, didn't we? And looking down there, that's a straight run through, isn't it? It's the vehicles from this direction that need to change. And they sort of slowly change their travel path around that because they can see the vehicle slowing down. Okay, all right. So that's interesting. Go back. So this stuff should be out here and the road should go sort of out like that. Wonder why they've done this. Well, I think some of you have probably pieced this together if you play in this space a bit, but the road's got services running along here under the ground. And to be able to widen into this side is going to be an expensive exercise. And so what we've discovered is that the designer or whoever's assisting this subdeveloper sort of took this turn treatment and just flipped it over and flipped it over so badly in their CAD software that they haven't even sort of fixed up the line marking issues where you see here you can overtake once you come out of it and it's safe to do so, but on the approach you don't let overtaking happen. So yeah, so what went wrong here? Okay, well, what went wrong here really was just an avoidance of it. Well, I mean, there's a whole lot of things that probably were compounding in this, but there really was no road safety auditing during the design of this. Now, I think that designers and traffic engineers of this probably need to have a bit of a look at themselves as to why they're doing this sort of stuff. But regardless, we want that check in there with the road safety auditors to have a look at and identify this before they've gone and built it. And luckily, nobody here was seriously injured or killed before some rectification was able to happen. Yeah, so ensuring that even with developer-funded works and these sorts of things, we're integrating that road safety auditing is important. This was an interesting one. I sort of, we didn't give usually an audit, you sort of, I don't know, takes a couple of weeks or something because you need to organize to get out to site, and you get out to site and then you look and you hang around till nighttime and you look again and you take your photos and you go back and then you ponder things and you look at things and you write up your findings and you get somebody else to check they're happy with it as well, and then you polish it all up and then you hand it over to your client. So it's there's a process in there. In this case, we sort of called from the site and said, this is not good. Do you want to get something more substantial than a traffic hazard ahead sign out here pretty immediately? Just to sort of calm that or lower that risk immediately, and then went back and did the reporting over the time there. You didn't want to wait on this one. So that was that one. Yeah, there's a few compounding risk factors as people are popping in there. In this one, just that example. Another one that's of interest. Now, it's not probably a major issue in most circumstances, but I don't like it, and it goes back to that sort of subconscious thinking. The use of a speed limit sign. Okay, well, first of all, this is just a non-compliant sign. So, but the use of a speed limit sign gives a subtle indication to a motorist that their road continues. That should be, yes, a black one if you're going to use it. But there's no real need to use it there because you get to the end of the road and turn, and then there should be another speed sign. But anyway, these are the scenarios I'm a bit more concerned about, which is where you are approaching an area where you have to give way or stop or the like. You don't have priority. But the speed signs are placed on that approach. Now, as I mentioned, that speed sign will subtly indicate to people, there's road ahead, carry on, because that's what they usually are used as. Also, if it was foggy, if it was dark, or they weren't concentrating too much or a little bit intoxicated or these sort of things, it's just going to add to that possibility of overshoot or these sorts of things. So again, thinking about where we place these signs and picking that sort of stuff up. This one, I've got a couple of points to make about it. How am I going on time? Yeah. So nighttime inspection is important. It looks pretty clear. At night, it's still pretty clear. It's just interesting to see the sort of back of that sign really sort of disappears. That was just one of the findings. So the nighttime inspections are important. This one also is an interesting one around some commentary around existing conditions, road safety auditing. There's the finding for that one all written up. I won't go through all of that in detail, but sort of low risk. Before I jump onto guardrails or barrier systems in general, existing conditions road safety audits. So there's one point in Vic roads where people got quite excited about road safety auditing. I remember how long ago this was, 15 years ago or something. Road safety auditing, and they're like, oh, great, okay, we're committed to road safety improvements. Road safety auditing is great. Let's get people to audit our entire network. And, it was just, consultants were over the moon at this time. I was like, give us a quote to do road safety audits of 600 kilometres of arterial road network. Well, that'll last you for the next 2 years. And so this sort of started happening. And what started happening was just that these massive reports of issues started coming in. And I was like, well, what do we do with this? And so that was sort of halted, and a bit of common sense prevailed. Said, well, okay, let's work out a better way to start filtering this, and then we'll utilize the road safety auditing where it's really appropriate. Because you could walk out the front of your house and look at your street or your road, and you pick up lots of issues. There's lots of stuff out there. We need to prioritize this. So there are good mechanisms for prioritizing. And so I caution anybody in a road authority from just deploying wide-scale existing conditions road safety auditing. It's just a waste of money. Filter and target, and then it's a super good use of money. So that's that. But the other time I think road safety auditing is highly valuable at an existing condition stage, so like the existing road network, is where there is community anger, or they believe something's a big issue, and council maybe or the road authorities doesn't believe it's an issue or have other opinions on it. The auditors can be an independent view on it, and that can calm people down significantly. Yeah, okay, you're worried about it, we're not worried about it. Let's get independent people in. So barriers simply, I just want to flag that road safety barriers are super complex. Okay, and if you are doing a road safety audit with barrier systems involved, make sure you're partnering up with somebody who knows about barrier systems. There's a lot to it. I won't go through all of it, but end terminals, ramped end terminals are fairly obviously bad. I think people can see that people would vault off those. Even now, breakaway cable terminals, we still worry about spearing through those, but we still see them deployed out there on the network, which is concerning. Fishtail terminals, obviously, were bad and deployed quite a lot around the world. And I mentioned spearing. This is the kind of concern we've got. We're hitting the end of the terminal. If it's not appropriate, it'll spear through the vehicle, and off it will go. Little bit of random trivia for you. This is in Colorado, and their practice is to put audio tactile edge line by scouring out the road rather than on top of it the way we would, because the snow plows rip off anything you put on top of it, which I thought was quite interesting. And then I asked them, well, how do you do RRPMs? And they go, oh, we have snowplow friendly RRPMs. Oh, that's cool. Good. It's an aside. Even, the complexity of barriers continues, because we don't even accept these products anymore, the ET2000s or the X350s and these sort of things. So these are what we're accepting. I don't need to go through it all. Okay. So I think that's pretty good. I'm going to stop sharing there. I'm going to take you into the learning management system again, and I'm going to show you how to complete the course. You've done very well. You've got through the modules and hopefully done the quizzes. And so you'll go through, and the research assignments from everybody are getting loaded up into there, I think, at the moment. So you'll be able to see what other people put in as their research assignments if you want. There's always some good stuff to watch, and well done to everybody again. You've got each of the modules, so you'll make sure you've put your research topic in. If you haven't done that already, you'll do the quiz. You've got to complete the quiz there, complete that quiz, do the desktop exercise, the 360 exercise, complete that quiz. This is the big one that you're currently hopefully doing. Complete your road safety audit. 3 findings only, remember. Upload that, and then a final quiz, which is labeled module 6 for some reason. It's module 5, but anyway, don't worry. You finish this final quiz, and once you've ticked all of those boxes and it's been marked and you got over 80%, you'll need to do the course feedback. Once you complete that, your certificate will appear there, and you'll be able to download your certificate. Course feedback, we love to hear any ideas you've got in how we could improve things, or what you really liked, or the like. So that's there. And then, yeah, as I say, that releases. Now, you will also then, after that releases electronically, in the following few weeks, you will get something posted to you with any prizes that you've won and a hard copy of that certificate. So hopefully that makes sense. But of course, get in contact with myself or Emma if you have any issues. And yeah, if you're struggling with that audit, get in contact with me. Happy to talk through some stuff with you, help you find stuff if you really can't seem to find anything. But I think most of you are really coming along nicely and being able to look at designs, imagine the future, and imagine challenges that people might have or issues that could arise. Okay, well, that pretty much brings me to the end, but I want to thank you all for taking time out of your incredibly busy lives to look into road safety auditing and think about road safety. I think it's super important that we think about the protection of our community in travel and see that as as paramount. We can all play a big role in this, and I encourage you to point things out as you see them that present road safety risk. If we've got big armies of people with safety eyes looking at plans and designs and existing roads, we're going to see continued improvement and continued safety. So make sure you register yourself as a road safety auditor. I think it's a worthwhile thing to add to your CV. It gives you extra commitment to road safety. Wear it as a badge of honor that you're an accredited road safety auditor, and point out those issues to the relevant authorities or those managing the projects. My contact details are available to you. I think you've got them in many spots. Please feel free to get in contact with me in the future if you've got questions around road safety engineering or the like. Happy to always let you know if I know something in the area, or I know somebody who knows something in the area, or I can point you in the right direction or send you reports or the like. Always happy to share that. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn as well, and also feel free to share your certificate online, and tell your online community that you've completed the course and the like, and love it if you tagged me in or whatever the term is, and I'll share that as well, or like it or the like. Couple of things that have come in the questions here. If you see obvious safety issues, are we able to report that to the local government authority? Yes. Yep, you are. So you certainly can say, do that as a resident. You can mention that you're a road safety auditor if you want to. You could call the responsible road authority and try to talk to the traffic engineer and say, noticed this out there, just completed the training, I'm very concerned it's an issue. You can do that as a general member of the public without having to have done a road safety audit course as well. When do you believe Austroads would harmonise the road safety audit accreditation? They're getting to the point, I think, a few months away from a report on how that process could look. So then they would have to start that process, and I think it's going to be some years away. I mean, there's quite a bit associated with that, and if they want to progress that. So Sean's mentioning Snap Send Solve, which is an app that you can use, which you can take photos of issues and it gets sent to the relevant road authority, and he pops in there that he's a road safety auditor, and he certainly has done the course in the past, so doing a bit of a refresher. Night photos, are they taken with headlights off? Okay. Trick for taking night photos in an audit, is just to put your camera flash on. So, a lot of camera flashes are sort of automatic. Put camera flash on, take your photo, it'll pick up quite nicely any signs and retroreflectivity and the like. So the question there, as a road safety auditor, we can't undertake a road safety audit without a senior road safety auditor on the team. It depends what jurisdiction you're trying to do the work in and the specifics of what they've asked you for. But in general, senior road safety auditors are required, but there are some specific circumstances where just a road safety auditor will be required. You need to take into account your own expertise and experience as well in whether you're going to undertake something, like hopefully even if a jurisdiction said, could you do the detailed design of this new roundabout, do detailed design road safety audit of this new roundabout, you wouldn't take that on by yourself as a road safety auditor, even if they said that, you know, that would be okay. But maybe certainly in some jurisdictions, like traffic management audits are often done by a road safety auditor who is very, you know, experienced with all of that, and they've got that extra bit. But I'm happy to talk to people if they have specific questions. I think I've covered off most of that. But yeah, thank you again. Yeah, really good group, great interaction. Enjoyed this, and please keep in contact. Use this next half hour that we had blocked out wisely. I suggest you get a good move on with anything that's outstanding in the course and finish things off and move that final assignment on. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. Bye.